I now want to go to London, Ontario. We have our CTV News national correspondent, Adrian Gobriel, who's been following this throughout the day, standing by live for us. Adrian, take it away, because as we got the verdict, the 5 players all found not guilty on all charges. A reaction from the courthouse.
Yeah, people are just starting to funnel out slowly. We just heard moments ago from Justice Muriel Caricias saying that the players are free to leave. The case, the trial, a formal trial over the last 8 weeks has concluded, and we heard multiple, reasons for her decision today. Again, each of the players found not guilty of sexual assault. Michael McLeod also found not guilty of being party to the offense. I also want to bring in criminal lawyer Nick Cake, who was inside the overflow room, keeping a close eye on this trial for weeks now. We heard from Justice Muriel Caricias today. We heard her share that she did not find EM, that's how we are identifying the complainant in this case, as credible, as reliable. Why?
Well, ultimately, it was because of the inconsistencies in her evidence. So when the judge is weighing credibility and reliability, one of the things they're doing is they're looking at what did the person say on the stand versus what they have said previously to the police, or even in other court documents, like, for example, the civil suit in this case. And then what she's doing is she's looking at, okay, is there any other evidence? What did other people say? Or in this case as well, what do the videos show, those objective videos? We know the surveillance cameras aren't lying.
And we saw in some of those videos that were submitted as evidence throughout this trial, Nick, where EM alleged that it was the players buying her copious amounts of drinks. The video showed her purchasing her own beverages inside the bar in London, Ontario back in June of 2018.
Sure, and they also show her not as intoxicated as she was, or not being separated from her friends as she stated she was, knowing some of the bouncers at the bar and things like that. And of course, these are just little bits and pieces. But as you mountain up those little bits and pieces, they get pretty big. And ultimately, each kind of cut against credibility goes to the weight. And so overall, when Her Honor looks at EM's evidence contextually, she determines that I can't give it any weight. You're just not credible or reliable. And if the complainant in a sexual assault case is not credible and reliable, then that makes beyond a reasonable doubt for the Crown to achieve incredibly difficult. And here, they couldn't.
And that's what we heard multiple times in her closing reasons for decision. This is a trial that really hinged on consent and the legal meaning of consent, and she couldn't find beyond a reasonable doubt that EM didn't consent, and that her actions in the hotel room on that night into the early morning hours of the 19th implied some level of consent.
Right, and when you're looking at a sexual assault, consent or the lack thereof is one of the essential elements. The Crown has to prove that consent wasn't there.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. And obviously, they couldn't, because, as Her Honor said, again, credibility and reliability came to give her doubt as it relates to consent, and reasonable doubt prevailed.
When we also, just look at all of the things that have taken place during this trial, we can see that there's protesters, supporters of the complainants starting to arrive again here. They were here this morning. They've been here throughout the trial. We saw a jury thrown out because of a mistrial. The first jury, just 2 days into this trial. Weeks later, a second separate jury that had been selected were dismissed because of allegations by jurors that members of Alex Formenton's defense team were laughing at them, were making them feel uncomfortable. Though the defense has denied those allegations, that jury was dismissed. We then went to a judge-only trial. Have you ever seen anything like this in your career?
I've never seen anything like this happen in the same trial. I've seen mistrials. I've seen re-elections to judge alone, but never combined as one. Ultimately, the trial completed, and it was because everyone realized, both the Crown and defense, that justice needs to be done here. We need to get to this decision today. And so that's why we're here.
And we heard some this morning calling, for justice. Has justice been served?
I don't think that you'll ever find anyone who exits a criminal courtroom and says that justice has been served, because justice is very subjective to every person who seeks it. But ultimately, what we can say is that the system worked. Agree with it or not, you have to accept it, because this is the system.
We see the national media here. We see documentary producers. We know that there's people writing novels. Talk about the spotlight that has been on this trial.
Well, I think the spotlight comes because of who these defendants were. We have 5 people on a gold medal winning national team, a junior national team, some of them still playing in the NHL up until essentially the date of their arrest. And then, of course, they are accused of sexual assault. And then there's a Hockey Canada scandal in relation to sexual assault and everything like that. So certainly it had the markings of something that would play out exactly as it did.
What do we see now taking place in the future as we look ahead?
Well, I think the future for these 5 young men is hopefully they can go home and start to rebuild their lives. Hopefully EM can get whatever help she needs to try and put closure to her own experience as well. And hopefully we can take this as a lesson for our young men and our women, both in sport and out of sport, and really focus on what consent is, how you achieve it, and how you reasonably seek it out.
Thank you so much, Criminal Lawyer Nick Cake. You know, as we've been discussing all day, this was decision day. The verdicts have been handed again. For those who are just tuning in, not guilty of sexual assault for each of the 5 players, not guilty of being party to the offense for Michael McLeod.
And Adrian, if we don't mind, set the scene for us, for our viewers, you being there outside the courtroom as court has now wrapped and defendants being found not guilty. They are free to go. Are they going to be walking out that front door? Are we expecting them, maybe their lawyers or them themselves, to now speak as they are free to go? Is that where they have to exit the courthouse?
We believe that the lawyers for Foote, as well as for Alex Formenton, will be speaking. The way in and out of the London courthouse isn't through the front doors, it's actually through the side doors. So the players will be exiting through the side doors. They're not to be given any preferential treatment. They're not to be able to give in some back door, just like any other member of the public found guilty, not guilty, allowed to leave the court. They will be leaving from that side door. And as I mentioned, we can see, you know, some of the supporters for the complainant beginning to arrive here. They were out here this morning. There were screams for justice. The players did have to walk by the protesters, some who were supporting the players, some here to support the complainant. And so we're expecting more of the same now that the case and the proceedings have wrapped up.
CTV's Adrian Gobriel reporting from live outside the London courthouse. Adrian, thanks so much for this.